The Blood of the Wolf. Prologue. Blood in Wine. The moon hung over Toussaint like a drop of blood in a glass of wine. The wine in Beauclair had turned black, like rotting silk. Rose petals floated in puddles of blood, and the houses laughed with hollow windows. Vines slithered along the walls. The streets lay deserted. Geralt stood on the balcony of the manor. He no longer needed sleep. He could feel every heartbeat within the quarter, every note of a flute from a distant balcony, every drop of blood beneath the skin of passers-by. He was no longer human, but not yet a monster, not yet. Regis stood beside him, gazing at the sky, feeling the night press against his chest. "He's no longer like the others," he whispered. Geralt nodded silently. He felt the bite in his neck like a wound yet to come. In the depths of his soul, he knew he could no longer stay here. However beautiful Beauclair might be, the thirst rising within him was becoming unbearable. "I'm heading to Kaer Morhen, my friend, at once," he said to Regis, and disappeared into the shadows of the manor walls. A few days earlier, none of the people of Toussaint would ever forget the blood-soaked massacre. Night fell over Beauclair far too early, its thick darkness, not just a sign of an approaching storm, but an omen of looming horror. From forests, vineyards, and long-forgotten catacombs, the vampires descended upon the city. Not the kind that skulk in shadows, but the ancient ones, noble, merciless, and driven by hunger and vengeance. The guard had no time to sound the alarm. The first scream was swallowed by silence, broken only by the rustle of wings and the clang of steel falling to cobblestones. The final battle with Detlef was drawing near, and everything in the city sang of blood. Wineries became altars. Sundials wept crimson. Geralt's clash with Detlef unfolded among the ruins of an ancient temple, where the darkness grew thicker with each sweep of claws and flare of silver. This was no mere fight against a vampire. It was a confrontation with primal rage, wrapped in intellect and sorrow, tearing at the fabric of the world itself. Bleeding and battered, Geralt pinned him to the earth. "You would have been one of us already," Detlef said as he lay dying. "You've only ever played the hunter's role well." And then he bit. In a burst of fury, Geralt cleaved what remained of the vampire in two and collapsed to his knees, racked with unbearable pain. Regis rushed to stop the bleeding, to apply a tincture, but the blood had already blackened, thick as clotted smoke. Geralt's eyes turned the color of an eclipse, and night began. Act 1. Eclipse. Kaer Morhen was drowned in silence, the kind that is thick and deafening like blood spilled on snow. The castle, once echoing with clashing blades and the laughter of young witchers, was now dead but not at peace. Geralt lived within its walls like a caged beast, or a curse. Yennefer wrote to him through magical channels. Warm, harsh, anxious messages, poetry and commands, curses and pleas. He never replied. Some letters he burned. Others he left on the shelf as a reminder of what could never be reclaimed. Her voice no longer echoed in his mind, but the shadow of her presence never left him. She lived in mirrors, in dreams, in those places where the air shimmered unnaturally. In her magic, which smelled of black lilac and gooseberries and which he craved almost as much as blood. He could feel himself changing. His body no longer responded to witcher elixirs. They made him nauseous. His reflexes became feral, his hearing unbearably sharp. He could sense the breath of mice under stone, birds' dreams, the pulsing of tiny hearts in leaves. But the worst was the thirst. It didn't tear or twist. It burned steady and deep. It didn't ask for blood, it demanded it. There was no pain in it, only a refined necessity. As if blood had become music, Impossible not to hear. Regis arrived in the 3rd month. He didn't ask new. He brought infusions, decoctions, ancient recipes, and words. Always so many words. He said there was still that he had walked a darker path and survived it. Geralt said little in return. He didn't trust himself. Around Regis, everything intensified, especially scent. He could tell how long it had been since Regis shaved, what he'd eaten yesterday, how he'd slept. He could sense the blood beneath his friend's skin, and it terrified him. "Yennefer," Regis once said, "you still carry her inside you. She could be your anchor." Geralt didn't lift his head. "If I see her, I won't hear her. I'll hear her pulse." Regis nodded. Slowly, like a physician watching a patient refuse treatment. 2 more weeks passed, and then the breaking point came. It was a misty morning. He hunted in the forest not for food, but for the feeling. He wanted to lose himself in familiar motions, tracking, trapping, striking. It was almost like before, until the final moment. The wolf came out first, old, scarred, proud. Geralt froze, staring into its amber eyes, and in that instant, the thirst broke free. It ended quickly. Claws, a snarl, a crunch. Blood soaked his glove. Warmth, taste. He felt no guilt, only ecstasy. He drank, greedily, to the last drop, as if it wasn't a wolf but wine, fermented in veins. Then realization, revulsion, he screamed, not with words, but from somewhere deep inside, dropped the carcass, crawled away, purged with herbs. At that moment, Yennefer awoke in a tower in Temeria. A sudden jolt, the magical thread snapped like a torn string. Her fingers trembled. She knew he had lost control. She no longer waited for letters. She began preparing. The path was clear, and if he lost control again, she would be there to stop him or to end him. Yennefer found him a week later. The portal opened beneath an icy downpour. She looked like a dream. Black cloak, a lilac ribbon in her hair, the scent of lilac and gooseberries, her signature. "Geralt," she said, as if calling from a world where light still existed. He didn't turn. He could feel her heart, beating fast, with pain. "You came too late," he said, "or too soon." She stepped closer, touched his shoulder. He flinched. "I left because I couldn't watch you die," she whispered. "Now you're watching me live," he smirked. In Kaer Morhen, the 3 of them stood in silence. Yennefer, Regis, Haralteach, trapped in their own hell. Regis said to Yennefer, "He is not completely lost, but you mages always try to control what you don't understand." Yennefer replied, "I don't want control. I want to hold him." Act 2. Reflection in Blood. The rift tore open along the hillside like a wound in the flesh of the world. From its depths emerged the silhouette of Cyrasord at her side, gaze sharp and focused. She stepped onto the grounds of Kaer Morhen, now dark, as if shrouded in ash. Yennefer was the first to meet her at the fortress. "Are you sure you want this?" Yennefer asked. "To see him like that?" "I don't want to," Ciri replied. "But I must. If there's even the slightest chance, I'll find him. And if he's no longer himself, I'll stop him." "And what if he is still himself? Still fighting? Still suffering?" Yennefer's voice was sharp, like steel against bone.
"Even if he's already lost, I need to know his soul fought until the end."
They found him near an old, abandoned well. He stood in shadow, his back to them. Yennefer took a trembling step forward. "Geralt," she whispered. He turned slowly. His face was familiar yet not. The scars, the white hair, the golden eyes were the same, but beyond them lay an abyss. His gaze was steeped in night. He took one step, then another, and stopped. Yennefer felt the storm within him, the thirst clawing at his soul. Yet something held him back. "I'm still here," she said, barely audible. He turned away. His fingers curled not into fists, but into claws. He wanted to forget who he was, and yet he remembered her. That evening, Ticonderoga arrived not as a monster, but as a noble. His form materialized among the forest shadows, bathed in moonlight, pale as snow, radiant as an eclipse. His voice was honeyed, his steps silent. "You don't have to suffer, Geralt," he said gently. "You were a hunter. Now become a herald. Become our knight, together with her, with Yennefer. How magnificent she would look by your side, robed in stars." Yennefer stepped between them. Her eyes sparked with fury. The air trembled with the magic she struggled to contain. "You could love an immortal," Ticonderoga continued, now addressing her. "He is no longer human, but with you, you could be eternal. No pain, no fear, only power." "I love one who can stand and still chooses the light," she answered. "Not one who hides in eternity." Ticonderoga vanished like ash, but his voice remained in Geralt's ears. It whispered in his sleep. It called. The days that followed were steeped in tension. Yennefer lived in the forest, guarding the path to him. Ciri trained relentlessly, as though preparing for a final battle. Magic and steel, control and resolve. They did not argue, but their silence was heavy as lead. "He's held on for too long," Ciri said. "It'll break him. He'll fall, and then I'll have to—" "No," Yennefer cut in. "If he slips, I'll take his hand myself and stop him. He must know, even in the deepest dark, I am there. I will walk behind him if I must, but only to the edge. Beyond faith walks alone." They waited. Days melted into one long night. The forest whispered, as though it too was part of some ancient design. One day Geralt did not return. Yennefer knew. He had gone deeper, to where the roots whispered, and ancient voices sang of blood. He had gone to disappear, to become something new, surrendering his will to a new master. Act 3. The Burial of Light. Following the trail of blood and fear, Ciri, Yennefer, and Regis reached a forest where night was thicker than earth. There stood Ticonderoga. Vampires danced around a bonfire made of hearts. Geralt sat on a throne of stone. His eyes were pupilless. He was the god of the hunt. Ciri stepped forward. "I came for the one who once held my hand as a child." Yennefer stood beside her. Her voice trembled. "I offer myself. Bind me to him." Ticonderoga laughed. "You wish to bind night to fire? The flame will fade, child, but night will remain." Geralt rose, step by step toward Yennefer. He did not see her face. He felt her heart, and himself within it. He raised his sword. All the vampires screamed. The silver burned like the dawn. A single strike. Ticonderoga turned to dust. The fire died. The darkness receded. Geralt collapsed. Yennefer caught him. Ciri closed her eyes and cried for the first time in years. No longer a hunter, no longer a witcher, not a man, and not a monster. Dust settled once more in Kaer Morhen. Geralt sat in the shadows and did not speak. Yennefer had lost her magic. Her hair had turned gray. She did not complain. Ciri wrote letters into the void. She read them aloud, sitting beneath his window. "He listens," she told Regis. He's still fighting. Regis stared silently into the night. Stars shone above, but one was fading. And yet it did not vanish, because the wolf, even as a shadow, still remembered the light. Act 4. The Ghost of the Wolf. Silence returned to the castle, but it was a different silence, not peace, but waiting. Geralt sat by the window like a stone statue, and the wind whispered forgotten names to him. Yennefer, now without magic, cared for him like an incurable patient. She brewed herbs, read him poetry, touched his hand. Sometimes he flinched. Sometimes she looked at her with a flicker of the old gaze. But more often, he stared into nothing. Ciri became a wanderer. She would leave for weeks, searching for a way to recover the remnants of Geralt's soul. Magic, alchemy, even cursed relics, all in vain. Regis, though alive, had grown silent. Wine no longer brought solace. He watched Geralt with sorrow, as if looking into a mirror of his own future. One day, a hunter arrived at Kaer Morhen. He came from the south, a scar across his face, bringing news. In nearby villages, they once again spoke of the white wolf drinking the blood of children. Geralt heard. He rose from his chair for the first time in a month. His voice was hollow. "It isn't me, but perhaps it's something I've created." He took his sword, the old silver blade, chipped and worn, and vanished into the night, just as he had years ago. Yennefer stood at the gates, not holding back tears. "If you leave, I won't wait again." He turned, and for the first time in a long while, he said, "Don't wait, but remember." He headed south. He faced darkness and madness. He burned dens, slew ghouls, embraced mothers weeping over graves. He became a ghost of vengeance. But with every drop of blood he spilled, a fragment of himself returned. Suffering became the thread that tethered him to his humanity. In the forest, he found the one impersonating him, a half-vampire, born of a blood rituala, pitiful imitation, but dangerous nonetheless. The battle lasted until dawn. When sunlight struck the branches, Geralt drove his sword into the creature's heart. It whispered, "You've become me." He replied, "I was you, but I will not remain so." Upon returning to Kaer Morhen, Yennefer was gone. She had left a letter. "If you're alive, come find me. If dead carry, no guilt." He read the letter 10 times. Then he saddled up and rode into the mountains, to where their path had begun. On a mountain pass, he found her. Gray-haired, weary, but still a sorceress at heart. "I wasn't waiting," she said, "but I still hoped." They stood in silence for a long time. Then Geralt held out his hand. She took it, and the world grew just a little warmer. Later, Ciri wrote in the chronicles, "He didn't defeat the curse. He defeated himself, which means she was never a monster." And the legend endured. Of the white wolf, who became a shadow but never disappeared. Because being human is not blood. It is choice. Friends, if you like this story, if you felt the shadow of the white wolf stir, don't let it fade. Subscribe, leave a like, and stay with us. More tales await you. More blood, more choices, more silence among the stars. See you in the next story.